Alright guys, we're back with a quick video on chapter 12, and just like chapter 11 had sort of one main subject, which was Miss Dubose, chapter 12's main focus is a visit to Calpurnia's church. And we're going to get sort of inside look at Calpurnia, okay, her actions, her education, and then the black culture at the church here. I'm just going to point out a couple things of interest in regards to that. We have Jem kind of growing up and seeming to be more knowledgeable and wise, starting to annoy Scout by his kind of know-it-all positions. And but the main thing I want to get in on here is the visit to the church. So we're just going to skip right down to that. So the kids got to get dressed, and then they're going to go to Calpurnia's church with them, which is called First Purchase African, probably Methodist Episcopal Church. And you'll notice as soon as they get there, somebody starts to interact with Calpurnia. Says, what you up to, Miss Cal? Said a voice behind us. Calpurnia's hands went to our shoulders, and we stopped and looked around. Standing in the path behind us was a tall Negro woman. Her weight was on one leg. She rested her left elbow in the curve of her hip, pointing at us with upturned palm. She was bullet-headed, with strange almond-shaped eyes, straight nose, and an Indian bow mouth. She seemed 7 feet high. I felt Calpurnia's hand dig into my shoulders. What you want, Lula? She asked, in tones I had never heard her use. She spoke quietly, contemptuously. I wants to know why you bringin' white chillun to nigger church. They's my company, said Calpurnia. Again I thought her voice strange. She was talking like the rest of them. Yeah, and I reckon you's company at the Finch house during the week. A murmur ran through the crowd. Don't you fret, Calpurnia whispered to me, but the roses on her hat trembled indignantly. When Lula came up the pathway toward us, Calpurnia said, Stop right there, nigger. Lula stopped, but she said, You ain't got no business bringing white children here. They got their church, we got ourn. It is our church, ain't it, Miss Cal? Calpurnia said, It's the same God, ain't it? Jem said, Let's go home, Cal. They don't want us here. I agreed they did not want us here. I sensed rather than saw that we were being advanced upon. They seemed to be drawing closer to us, and when I looked up at Calpurnia, there was amusement in her eyes. When I looked down the pathway again, Lula was gone. In her place was a solid mass of colored people. One of them stepped from the crowd. It was Zebo, the garbage collector. Mr. Jem, he said, we're mighty glad to have you all here. Don't pay no attention to Lula. She's contentious because Reverend Sykes threatened to church her. She's a troublemaker from way back, got fancy ideas and haughty ways. We're mighty glad to have you all. Okay, very kind of interesting interaction because Scout says she had never heard Calpurnia talking that way. Her voice was strange. She was talking like the rest of them. So what does that mean? Well, they're talking in a dialect, right, of English. And it's a kind of slang speech. Okay, so it's very informal and technically incorrect. So technically there's bad grammar here. But normally Calpurnia is able to speak in proper grammar. Oh, something's crashing here. There we go, sorry about that. So normally, actually, Calpurnia was the one who taught the kids. Wow. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on here. All right, let's try this again. It's a miracle. All right. Normally, Calpurnia is the one who actually taught Scout to read and to write like cursive writing, even. From the Bible, she taught her to write this kind of style, if you've ever seen cursive writing. Maybe you've never seen that style of writing. Anyway, so it's about the speech. We're going to see issues of speech, issues of education, issues of poverty and wealth equality, and of course issues of race, all coming up in this chapter. And race is connected to this issue of wealth as well. Obviously, the black people in the society are the lowest level of the society, so they generally tend to be the lowest level of society in terms of wealth as well. However, we're going to see later that there's a group in the society that's kind of even poorer than some of the black folk, which, you know, they call white trash. All right, so notice the way she's speaking. She's changed. So Calpurnia changes her way of speaking. Okay, so Calpurnia adapts to their way of speaking, which is very interesting. Why is she doing that? All right, so they get to church and they start singing songs, and time comes where they sit down to the pews for the service, and Scout says, "Where are the hymn books? We don't have any," she said. Well, how? So actually, sorry, before they start singing, you know, Scout's wondering, well, how are you going to sing songs without your hymn books, songbooks? So normally in the white church, they have these hymn books with the songs so they can read the music. Well, they don't have any in the black church. So they have a leader here, Zebo, the garbage man. He rises from his pew, walks down the center aisle, stopping in front of us facing the congregation. He was carrying a battered old hymn book, so he's got a hymn book. He opened it and said, "We'll sing number 273. This was too much for me. "How are we going to sing it if there ain't any hymn books?" Calpurnia smiled. "Hush, baby," she whispered. "You'll see in a minute." Zebo cleared his throat and read in a voice like the rumble of distant artillery. "There's a land beyond the river." Miraculously on pitch, 100 voices sang out Zebo's words. The last syllable, held to a husky hum, was followed by Zebo saying that we call the sweet forever. Music swelled again around us. The last note lingered, and Zebo met it with the next line, "And we only reach that shore by fate's decree." The congregation hesitated. Zebo repeated the line carefully, and it was sung. At the chorus, Zebo closed the book, a signal for the congregation to proceed without his help. On the dying notes of Jubilee, Zebo said, "In that far-off sweet forever just beyond the shining river." Line for line, the voices followed in simple harmony until the hymn ended in a melancholy murmur. I looked at Jem, who was looking at Zebo from the corner of his eyes. I didn't believe it either, but we had both heard it. Okay, so how did they sing? They sang in this like line by line, which later they're going to call linen. And we can call this call and response as well, which is a common African American kind of spiritual song style. So call is the leader, Zebo, gives the line. Response is the rest of the people sing it back at him. So, why are they doing it this way? We're going to learn what they call that. Let me just find this in the digital version here, which is on page 141. I'm going to in the book version if anyone has the paper book. All right. Sorry, it's different in this than my book. All right, got it. He's just like our preacher, said Jem, but why do they all sing hymns that way? Linen? Is that what it is? Yeah, it's called linen. They've done it that way as long as I can remember. Jem said it looked like they could save the collection money for a year and get some hymn books. So is it because they don't have enough money for the hymn books? Well, not totally. That's part of it. Calpurnia laughed. Wouldn't do any good, she said. They can't read. So actually, it's not quite about money. They're actually illiterate. They can't read. And so that's the issue. They don't need the hymn books. Can't read, all those folks? That's right, Calpurnia nodded. Can't but about 4 folks in first purchase read. I'm one of them. Where'd you go to school, Cal? Nowhere. Let's see now, who taught me my letters? It was Miss Maudie Atkinson's aunt, old Miss Buford. Are you that old? I'm older than Mr. Finch, even, Calpurnia grinned. Not sure how much, though. We started remembering one time trying to figure out how old I was. I can't remember back just a few years more than he can, so I'm not much older when you take off the fact that men can't remember as well as women. All right, so Calpurnia can read. She was taught by a white lady in the town, and then she taught her son, Zebo, to read. All right, now that's one thing to think about, education, money, and so on. And how they learn to read. And then I want to just point out something Calpurnia says about why she was speaking the way she was there. Okay? That Calpurnia led a modest double life. Oh, let's back up a moment here. That's why you don't talk like the rest of them, because she was taught from this Blackstone's commentaries, which had very fine English. That's how she taught Zebo as well. So she speaks proper English. That's why you don't talk like the rest of them, said Jem. The rest of who? Rest of the colored folks. Cal, but you talked like they did in church. That Calpurnia led a modest double life never dawned on me. The idea that she had a separate existence outside our household was a novel one, to say nothing of her having command of 2 languages. Cal, I asked, why do you talk nigger talk to your folks when you know it's not right? Well, in the first place, I'm black. That doesn't mean you have to talk that way when you know better, said Jem. Calpurnia tilted her head and scratched her head, then pressed her hat down carefully over her ears. It's right hard to say, she said. Suppose you and Scout talked colored folks talk at home. It'd be out of place, wouldn't it? Now what if I talked white folks talk at church with my neighbors? They'd think I was putting on airs to beat Moses. But Cal, you know better. Okay, so what she's saying, she doesn't want them to feel uncomfortable. She's putting herself in their shoes, which is Atticus's principle. right? Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Don't make them feel weird. That's why.